A few months ago, someone new moved into the neighborhood. I didn't pay much attention. People come and go all the time. However, from the first day they moved in, they never left their house, at least not during the day. Every night, I'd hear the start of a car engine at 9:54 p.m. sharp. By morning, the car would be back in the driveway. I figured they worked a graveyard shift and slept during the day. That seemed like a plausible explanation until one night. While binge-watching Miami Vice, I got up to make popcorn, and I heard the engine start. Feeling curious, I decided to do some snooping, which was out of character for me. I pulled back my curtains and opened my window, poking my head out. The night air was cool and fresh as I tried to get a closer look. When my vision adjusted, I saw my neighbor hauling a huge black trash bag across their driveway. It was uncanny. What could possibly be in that bag? A body? No, I had been watching too much true crime. But for someone who never left the house during the day, this was unusual. I watched as the neighbor opened their trunk, tossed the bag inside, and quickly shut it. I ducked my head back inside, my heart racing. What was I witnessing? I contemplated calling 911, but wasn't sure if a crime had actually occurred. When I looked out the window again, the car was gone. I decided to head to bed. There wasn't much I could do, and I wasn't interested in playing detective. I closed my window, shut off the TV, and plopped onto my bed. I barely slept that night, tossing and turning, unable to stop thinking about what might have been in that bag. Was I living near a serial killer? Did they go out at night to do their dirty deeds and hide evidence in their house? I forced myself to think of something else and eventually fell asleep. I woke up around 10 in the morning and immediately looked out the window. The car wasn't in the driveway. Things were getting more suspicious. First, the potential body bag, and now my neighbor had fled into the night. My phone buzzed, pulling me out of my thoughts. I had a single notification, a message from an unknown number. At first, I didn't think much of it, but as I read it, I nearly had a panic attack. It read, "If you tell anyone what you saw, I'll kill you, and I'll make sure not to leave a single trace." My heart sank. A horrible dread washed over me. I tossed my phone aside, but quickly picked it back up, frantically trying to type a response. My hands were shaking so much I couldn't type coherently, so I just blocked the number instead. Who sent that message? How did they get my number? And then it hit me. It had to be the neighbor. But how could they have gotten my number? Unless they looked up the address online, there was no other explanation. I tried to calm myself down. I didn't want to dismiss my paranoia, but I also needed to get ready for work. I did my casual routine and headed out. The rest of the day was uneventful. No new messages. That was a relief, but I was scared to go home. I called my friend Melanie and asked if I could stay at her place for the night. I didn't tell her why. I'm not one to worry others. I just needed to keep a low profile. When I arrived at Melanie's house, she was happy to see me and ran over to hug me. She immediately noticed my somber expression. She lifted my chin and asked, "Hey, what's eating you? You haven't looked this depressed since your dad passed away. I know it's been tough, but he's in a better place now." She took my hands and gave me an empathetic smile. Melanie always had my back, but this time was different. This time, I was in serious danger and didn't want to put her life at risk. "Thanks, I'm just going through the motions. I'll be okay, I promise." We went inside, and I put my stuff in her spare bedroom. As I was unpacking, my phone buzzed. I pulled it out with one hand and saw a new message from an unknown number. My heart raced as I read it. "You can't get away from me. I won't let you. I'll track you down. I know you saw me last night. You think I'm an antisocial loser like everyone else, but I've got plenty of friends, and soon you'll be joining them permanently." I blocked the number. I'd have to get a new number soon. I couldn't bear the thought of these messages escalating to something worse. I convinced Melanie to let me stay at her place longer. She probed for answers until I finally gave in and told her everything. She was understanding and let me stay as long as I needed. She helped me pack my things and move them to her place. She advised me not to go out as much. I figured I'd have to quit my job and find remote work online. For the next several days, I adjusted to my new life. Melanie installed security cameras, alarms, and door and window sensors. While I felt more comfortable, I still had a tinge of paranoia. At least I wasn't receiving any new messages with my new phone and number. One day, Melanie went out with her colleagues for a girls' night out and left me to babysit the house. She said she'd be back before midnight and left around 8 p.m. After she was gone, I grabbed some snacks and headed to my room to watch Miami Vice. After about 20 minutes, my phone buzzed. I hesitated to check it, afraid it was another disturbing message. I reminded myself I had a new number, and it was probably Melanie checking up on me. I turned my phone on. There was a message from an unknown number. I know you're in there. I know you're hiding from me. You think you can just move out without saying goodbye? Come outside. I've got some lovely people I want you to meet. You're about to have a lot in common with them. I felt horrified at the thought of coming face to face with that freak. I slowly walked to the window and pulled the curtain back slightly. Across the street, I could make out a lone figure standing on the sidewalk, hands in their pockets, wearing a hoodie. In the dim light, their eyes were hidden, but I felt their intense, menacing stare. I never knew if this person was a man or a woman, but they appeared male despite their small stature. They didn't move. They just stood there, looking in my direction. I snapped out of my trance and dialed Melanie's number. The phone rang a couple of times before going to voicemail. I started to panic. I shut the TV off and sprinted downstairs to make sure everything was locked. My phone buzzed again. With trembling hands, I unlocked the screen and read the message. All right, if you aren't coming out, I'm coming in. Nobody will be coming to save you. I tried calling Melanie again, but it went to voicemail. I felt hopeless. I began to sob, my life flashing before my eyes. Was this the end? Would I be taken out by a madman? No, I had one more option. I dialed 911. The operator answered. Hello, what's your emergency? There's someone outside. They're outside my friend's house. I think they're going to kill me. Please send help, I said, my voice shaking. Try to remain calm. What is your location? Can you give me a description of the person? Yes, I'm at 2745 West Arbery Street. I couldn't see their face. It was covered with a hoodie. I saw them across the street. They've been threatening me over text. Please send somebody now. Okay, we're sending officers. Try to remain calm and do not leave the property. The operator's tone was reassuring before they hung up. My heart pounded. The police might not get here in time. I needed to defend myself. I ran to the kitchen and grabbed the biggest knife I could. My adrenaline was high as I slowly inched towards the front door, gripping the knife tightly. My phone buzzed again, but I ignored it. I pressed my ear against the door and heard faint, deep breathing. A chill ran up my spine. The doorknob slowly turned, and I nearly shrieked, but the door was locked. I remained silent. It felt like an eternity. The doorknob jerked rapidly, followed by a hard banging. I pressed my whole weight on the door, but the force of the bangs was strong. The door shook violently. I shouted, "Leave me alone, you crazy psycho! I have a knife and the police are on their way!" My phone buzzed like crazy, and the maniac relentlessly tried to knock the door off its hinges. And suddenly, I heard multiple police sirens in the distance. They got louder as they approached our street. You hear that? They're coming for you. You won't get away with what you did. I hope you rot in jail. Audible shouting voices surrounded the house. I ran to a window and saw numerous cops with their guns drawn. Rapid gunfire erupted from their side. I saw a body sprinting away, but was struck and fell to the ground. They had killed my neighbor. At least, I thought so. Seconds later, there was knocking. I stood frozen, but realized it was one of the cops. It's safe to come out now. He's dead. He won't hurt you anymore. I unlocked the door and stepped out into the cold night. The lifeless body of what was once my neighbor was being taken away on a stretcher. The police started asking questions, but I was too numb to respond. I just stared off into the distance. It was finally over. I developed PTSD after that night. I was never quite the same. I fell into a deep depression and became more paranoid than ever. Melanie insisted I go to therapy, but I kept putting it off. I hardly left my room and even contemplated. I hardly left my room. After weeks of misery, I gained the courage to seek real help. Slowly, my mental health improved, and I didn't feel as paranoid as before. A recent investigation of my neighbor's house revealed that he had gone on a massive killing spree throughout the country. A recent investigation of my neighbor's house revealed that he had gone on a massive killing spree throughout the county. He had hidden bodies in his basement and would go out at night to dump them in random locations. If it hadn't been for me, he would have continued his murderous activities. If I hadn't witnessed that night, I would have never received those harassing messages and might have assumed he was just an odd neighbor. This experience taught me a harsh lesson. You could never be too sure about who your neighbors really are. Thanks so much for listening, guys. A quick shout out to my patrons. Kevin Kess, Sabiel Eclipse, 055555, Cormac Wells, Amara, Matthew Steiner, Cupcake Hips, Alonzo, Mr. Sankofa, Michael Milburn, Kozak, Icy Narrates, Jesse Hartley, Eric Cifuentes, Andreas Anderson London, Lawrence Wallen, Geek Sanctuary, Melissa Perez, and this guy. That is someone's actual username. I love that. Thanks again so much for watching, guys. If there's anything you would like me to pray for, I would love to know how I can be praying for you. I hope you have a nice day, and I'll see you in the next video.